Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
Welcome to the Sisters-in-Laws podcast, a faith-based podcast that spotlights Black women that replace silence with storytelling around pregnancy and infant loss and infertility. Black women experience miscarriage and stillbirth 4 to 5 times more likely than white women in the United States, according to the CDC and NIH. Whether you've experienced a miscarriage, infant loss, or stillbirth, are trying to conceive, or have an infertility diagnosis, you will learn about resources and strategies to heal, gain clarity, peace, and hope, and find an empowering path forward after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. Freeman, and you'll hear me interview other sisters-in-laws from around the world who have healed from such a painful and traumatic experience by sharing their testimonies and stories to inspire and help others turn their pain into their purpose. Storytelling is powerful. Storytelling is activism. Storytelling is healing. Now let's get started. All right. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you for having me.
So I would love for you to begin with sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay. So yes, my name is Simbi Animashaun, and currently I reside in Lithonia, Georgia, which is not the A. I wear many hats, as you can see. You know, I'm a little stylish, but you know, I wear many hats. One is I'm an educator. I taught for 12 years in Maryland. I taught in Ohio, and I also taught here in Georgia, which is the duration of my 12 years. Currently, I am an academic coach where I mentor and I provide coaching services to first year or second year teachers, that are kind of struggling in their roles and need support. So I do that. I'm also a published author. I published my memoir last year, and it's about my journey of having multiple miscarriages, and as well as my journey to motherhood. So I have 3 kids right now, ages 4, 2, and 1. And before I even was able to conceive, I had a total of 4 miscarriages. So at this point in my life, I'm just here just trying to advocate for, other women that are experiencing the same miscarriages or even child loss. I'm also an advocate for brain injury awareness because I also experienced a brain hemorrhage during the time that I experienced my miscarriages. So I'm also a mompreneur, and I say a mompreneur because I'm, wearing these different hats. Mom is first, but I have 2 small businesses where my first small business is called Immaculate Health and Wellness, and the number 1 seller is my freshly pressed juices. So I have about 7 different flavors. One is like Beat It, which has beets, blueberries, and apples in it. And then I sell a variety of health and care, personal care products. And then my last small business is Immaculately Snatched, which I offer body sculpting services.
So all in the health and wellness space. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with your story and your journey. So I want you to just take us back on your journey to motherhood and share with us your miscarriage story.
Okay. So my miscarriage journey started January 2014. it was New Year's Day, and I found out that I was pregnant. I had missed my cycle, and I just kind of went and bought a pregnancy test from the pharmacy, from local pharmacy. And my significant other at the time, we were living in 2 different states. He was in Ohio and I was in Georgia. So he had actually came to visit that New Year's Day, and we went out, and I said, let me go ahead and just see if I'm pregnant. So I snuck in the bathroom and took the pregnancy test, and of course it came back positive. So that was my first, experience being pregnant. And I was so excited, because I wanted to be a mom. I was 30. I believe I was 30 years old at that time. I had been teaching for about 5-6 years. And, I was just ready to transition into, the next phase of my life, which was to be a mom. So 2 weeks later, I experienced my first miscarriage. And that was probably the most traumatic experience in my life because it happened while I was teaching my students. Yes, it happened while I was teaching my students. I think a week prior to that, to the miscarriage, I was cramping a lot and I was spotting. But I had went to go see my gynecologist prior to the miscarriage to see what was going on. Because again, it was my first pregnancy and I just wanted to make sure I had a healthy and successful pregnancy. So gynecologist ended up sending me back home, after that visit, just let me know, just relax and we'll see you in another week. They did an ultrasound, but it was so early in the pregnancy, they was just like, well, we don't hear a heartbeat, but that doesn't mean that this is the end. It's still early. So that's why I didn't really pay too much attention, to the bleeding and to the cramping until it actually happened. And at that point, I didn't even know what's happening. Like I just started bleeding really badly and I could feel the blood coming out of my legs. And I was just so embarrassed. Like I ended up just running out the classroom and the kids looking like, what's Miss Animashaun doing? But I said, I can't let them see what's going on. So I ended up running to the bathroom. And by that point, it was so bad. I had to rush out the school building and go to the nearest emergency room. So from there, of course, they do the ultrasound and they ask all these different questions. And that was my first miscarriage. That was my first. So they let me know that it was no heartbeat. They did DNC that day. So all in one. I experienced that all in one. So again, uneducated, not knowing what was going on. It just kind of left me traumatized. So that was the first miscarriage, Erica. That was the first. You ready for the next one? Or you have anything to say?
No, I'm traumatized for you and the kids in the classroom to know, something's wrong. And my goodness. Yes, go ahead and continue on with the next one.
Okay. So after I was sent home from, the emergency room, I just kind of sat at home alone. I didn't let my family know. I didn't reach out to friends, but I was more so embarrassed. The only person that I told was probably my assistant principal at the time, which was a guy. And I didn't want to tell him, but I had to tell him something because I didn't return to work, for a couple of days. I told my significant other at the time, of course, and he's a guy and most guys don't understand. So it was just a really tough time, having to cope with it by myself. So I just laid in bed for maybe like a week or so, just drowning in my hurt and pain. That summer, which was, July 2014, I ended up moving to Cleveland, Ohio, because my significant other or boyfriend at the time, he was just like, I want us to be closer to each other. If something happens, I want to be able to be there for you. So making that decision, I was hoping that it would, definitely bring us closer together. In November 2014, which is probably a few months after being in Ohio, I had a brain hemorrhage. November 2014. Again, check this out, Erica. Sitting in class, in grad school this time. Sitting in grad school in my graduate course, about to present my final project. I aspired to be a principal back then, not anymore. I started attending classes at Cleveland State University. And so that particular night, I had the worst headache in my life. Blurry vision, slurred speech, confusion, not knowing where I was. What does that sound like to you, Erica?
Sounds like you were experiencing stroke symptoms. Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't know that, Erica. I didn't know. Again, I'm 31 at this point, and I just feel bad, for our community, because we're really uneducated about a lot of things when it pertains to our health. So I was experiencing all these symptoms of a stroke, and I didn't know. So my significant other, or boyfriend, came to pick me up from class, took me to the nearest emergency room, and we let them know all the different symptoms that I was experiencing. And Erica, they sent me home on the notion that I was pregnant. So they didn't even further investigate, like, you have a headache, you have, slurred speech, blurry vision. They said, oh, it's because you're pregnant. That's why you're experiencing all these symptoms. So at that time, of course, uneducated, most of the doctors, and I hate to pull the race card, but most of the doctors were white, sent me home, misdiagnosed. A week later, I ended up going to the gynecologist because, again, I found out I was pregnant again. Did I want to be pregnant at that time? No, because I was still dealing with the trauma from the first miscarriage. So I wasn't planning. I wasn't ready to be pregnant again, but I'm pregnant. So I'm sitting at home, can't walk, can't really see, can't talk to anyone. And, I set this appointment to go to my gynecologist because in my mind, I didn't know what was going on. I'm pregnant. So let me go check the status of the baby. That was most important to me, is to see what was wrong with, if the baby was okay. So went to the gynecologist the following week. So I sat at home for a whole week with all these different symptoms. And once I got to the gynecologist, he's just like, okay, you are pregnant. You're about 4 or 5 weeks. There's no heartbeat, but Simbi, how long have you been experiencing these symptoms? So he wanted me to go through the different symptoms and, everything that I had been through. He was like, this is not because of pregnancy. He said the doctors at the emergency room should not have sent you home under the diagnosis of pregnancy. He said, this is not pregnancy. So he ended up sending me to the nearest hospital where they did all these different diagnostic tests, preliminary tests. And from there, they was just like, we want to do an MRI on your brain. So a week later, Erica, this is my first opportunity of seeing what was really wrong with me. I stayed in the hospital for about 3 days. And at that time, they wasn't really concerned about no baby. They was really concerned about me. So from there, I found out that I had a brain hemorrhage. So I sat at home for an entire week with a ruptured AVM. That's what my brain hemorrhage was caused by AVM, which is a rare disease. So that particular 3-day stay at the hospital, they also came back and confirmed that no heartbeat for the baby. So that was my second miscarriage.
Wow. So how did they move forward with treating your AVM and this hemorrhage that you had? Like, what was the next steps, especially after the miscarriage? I'm assuming that they did a D&C again for the miscarriage. I didn't
want a D&C. So what I did was I took the abortion pill.
Pills. Mm-hmm.
I took the pill and I ended up releasing the fetus at home.
Gotcha.
Because it was just too much. Like
that's still traumatic though. Like I had an
MRI, I had a angiogram where they put like a piece of metal string into your brain. It was just so much. I'm like, just give me the pill. Let me go home. Release the fetus at home. In the comfort of my own home. So second miscarriage, and within the journey of trying to treat the AVM. I had 2 choices. I either could have brain surgery, but it's just like, if you have brain surgery, then of course you may be left in a vegetable state. I mean, who wants to be left in a vegetable state? So I'm like, what's my other option? My other option was non-invasive. And the procedure is called gamma knife radiosurgery. So I was supposed to have the gamma knife radiosurgery so moving forward, we in 2015 now. I was supposed to have that procedure like in April or May. Found out I was pregnant again. So I had to postpone the treatment. And again, a couple weeks later, no heartbeat. So I was getting used to hearing no heartbeat. Okay, just give me the pill. Let me release it at home again. So I released it at home again. And I'm like, okay, let me reschedule my gamma knife radiosurgery. Rescheduled it. And of course, they do the pregnancy test before they actually do the procedure. So in June, found out I was pregnant again, Erica. Story of my life, Erica. Found out I was pregnant again. So they just like, they set me down this time. They said, Simbi, your life is in danger. Do you understand the severity of your condition? And I did it. I did it because I had a brain injury. And I'm like, you're the trained professional. So how can you ask me that question when you know that my cognitive level is not where it should be? It's not 100%. So no support system. The only person I had was my boyfriend, at the time. And of course, we just doing what we do, and not really thinking about the consequences of what we were doing. He wasn't educated as well about the AVM. So by that point, I started to really internalize, like, my life is on the line now. I gotta stop. So of course, no heartbeat for the baby. And this time I decided to go ahead and do a DNC because I wanted them to actually test the fetus and see if there was something wrong. I'm like, this is number 4 now. Like, can someone tell me, like, what's wrong? So they did their examination and they didn't find anything. They found nothing. But in my mind and what I know now, I'm thinking it has something to do with the AVM. Yeah, the AVM may have caused the miscarriages. So DNC for miscarriage number 4, and I end up getting on the depot shot because I'm like, I can't keep getting pregnant. It's too traumatizing. My life is on the line here. So the depot shot, of course, stops you from being able to conceive. And so from there, I was able to get the gamma knife radiosurgery in September 2015. So that was my last miscarriage that I had that summer.
So how was your journey to your rainbow baby?
Oh, journey to my rainbow baby. And my rainbow baby, his name is Messiah. And that's my 4-year-old. So journey to my rainbow baby. It was, living in Ohio was hard. It was difficult. I'm a Southern girl. And it was hard for me to transition there. So by the time I had all these miscarriages and had a brain hemorrhage, I'm like, it's time for me to go back home. So I ended up moving back to Atlanta. And once I moved back to Atlanta, I focused on Simbi. I focused on my health. Found a reproductive specialist so that I could, again, be educated and learn a little bit more about, what was going on with me. So from there, I love this lady. I ain't gonna say her name, but she is the reason that I'm a mom today. Like, she really took her time to investigate what was going on with me. So end up finding out that I had PCOS, which is my case is very minor. Yeah, I had PCOS. I also had high sugar levels. So that was also probably a cause of the miscarriage. So finding these things out, she was able to help me change my lifestyle. So I changed my lifestyle in every area. Just my way of thinking, more positive, having a little bit more faith, changing my diet, changing my exercise routines, just focusing on health, focusing on what I put in my body, again, my way of thinking. So from there, she put me on metformin, and that actually regulated my sugar levels. And it actually had me drop all this water weight that I had. And I felt that was probably the best I had felt in so long, in maybe like the past 2-3 years. I felt so good. And got pregnant. Because I didn't go back for the depot shot. I'm like, that had so many adverse reactions. I'm like, no, I would never get on any steroids again. So I got pregnant in May 2016. And that journey was scary. Because I'm like, you had 4 miscarriages and all your, in my mind, okay, no heartbeat is all I've heard. But that first ultrasound, Erica, like when it was time for me to have my first ultrasound to hear the baby heartbeat, we heard a heartbeat. So that was my first time ever. And I believe I was about 6 weeks. I'm like, is this real? I couldn't believe it. So weeks later, I started bleeding. And of course, I'm just panicking. She said, stop panicking because that can affect you and the baby. She said, the baby is fine, Simbi. She said, do you hear this? So I'm hearing the heartbeat at 8 weeks. I said, yes, I hear the heartbeat. So from there, throughout the pregnancy, every ultrasound or every appointment, I'm hearing my son's heart. So my son was born January 18th, 2018. 5 pounds, 15 ounces, 19 inches long. That's my baby. I like that. That's who made me a mom. That's my son. That's my baby. So from there, let's see, the next year I got pregnant again. I had my daughter in November 2019. A year later, I had my son, November 2020. So they 12 months apart. I'm done there, Erica.
Simbi, you have taken us on a journey. But one thing I can say that I love.
Y'all on the journey, girl.
Yes. One thing I can say that I love, and I hope that the listeners take away from this, is that you really did research. You really advocated for yourself when it came to the AVM, your brain hemorrhage. And then when you moved, you were like, I need to get someone who can tell me exactly what's going on with my body, because there has to be a reason why I'm having these losses, right? It's not just because of the AVM. There's something else going on with my body. And you got your answer of the PCOS diagnosis. And that really helped set the precedent for, helping you get to the point where you have these beautiful, healthy rainbow babies that you have. So I hope people take away that, even though a lot of us may not know about a lot of things that are happening to our bodies, that we can still go get the answers, right? We still can go find the people that are going to listen to us, that are going to take us seriously, and that we're not in a life or death situation when it comes to our health.
Right.
Absolutely. So I would love for you to talk about just really how you transitioned to this whole wellness thing, because you're doing a lot in the wellness community, with your book, with, sharing your story, with, the juicing and the sculpting and all the other things. So I'm assuming that, and I would love for you to share more, how did you transition into really becoming this wellness mompreneur, as you call yourself?
Okay. Yeah. So that journey started actually during the pandemic. Just being here at home with the kids by myself, and just kind of thinking about okay, you taught this, during the pandemic, we were all able to look at our lives and think about, well, what can I do differently? I've done this for a while, and, I don't feel like I'm growing in this aspect. I didn't feel like I was growing as a teacher. I didn't feel like they valued me as a teacher. So once I had my son, my principal at the time actually made me choose between returning back to work and my family. So I shared my journey with her, Erica, and for her to make me choose between returning back to work during the pandemic and my family, but she could allow me to teach from home. I said, you don't value me. So of course I chose my family. And from there, God just put this vision he birthed this vision, like, you've been through all these things. Why not share it with the world? Because I've been a very private person. Even during my storms, like miscarriages and brain hemorrhage, I really didn't let anyone know what was going on. I just kept it to myself. I just drowned in my own sorrow. But that pandemic, being here actually and able to process information and process my surroundings and process my environment, I'm like, I can do more. So from there, I wrote my book first, which I told my story first. So I wrote my book. It took me about a year to write the book, to publish the book, of course, promote it. And everything else just started falling in place. Like, my health and wellness business that was birthed back in maybe like July of last year, maybe August is when I actually made it official. But I had been juicing for a while, just to help me with my recovery, with my brain injury recovery, because juicing allows me to, utilize my hands. And so I have hand trembles, which is one of my side effects from the AVM. So juicing allowed me to still practice using my hands and, trying to strengthen my hands. And from there, girl, I started creating body butters and body scrubs and all the yoni products, yoni gel, yoni oil, yoni soap. So I'm doing all these things to not only strengthen myself physically, but at the same time, help other women understand that if you don't take care of yourself, like, you can't blame other people for, things that's going on. Because again, we live this life where we're on the go all the time, and we don't never take to relax. We don't never take the time to really think about what's going on with us, mentally, physically, health wise. And so again, the purpose of my business is just to help women and men realize that their health is important. Self-care is important. Like, we have to take care of ourselves. We have to learn to be still and think about ourselves. Because again, like I said, we're always on the go, working, being a mom, being a dad, and we never take time for ourselves. So that's the purpose of the health and wellness business. Now, the other business, I had 3 kids. I've had a total of 7 pregnancies. So, I started, once I released my book, I'm like, okay, I want to be this person when I represent my book, So last summer was also the start of that journey, just, losing weight and defining my body a little bit more so that I could feel good about myself. So I started the body sculpting services after I actually did the services for myself. And I saw that it does work. And I felt good about myself. So my clients so far that I've done, like, I'm seeing a change, like, just in their demeanor, how they feel about themselves. They're loving themselves more. So I'm just a advocate. Like, we gotta love ourselves. And the last thing I just want to share is that I actually just got approved for my nonprofit organization. Yes. So I'm waiting. I haven't said much about it, but I'm waiting, for tax exemption from IRS. Of course, that takes a while. But it's called United by Laws Foundation Incorporated. So I'll be, along with my board members, we'll be trying to offer grief counseling. We'll be offering care packages to women that have experienced a miscarriage or child loss. So our goal is to donate these care packages, which can have a copy of my book, or I also have a journal that I published, a miscarriage journal. I plan to put a copy of that, a memorial necklace or something, just for them to be able to remember, their baby, like your baby still is important. Maybe a candle, some aromatherapy things, just to get them through that day that they have experienced their loss.
Oh, it sounds so amazing. So happy for you and all that you're doing. So I would love for you to really talk about just really how did you navigate through all those multiple miscarriages back to back, and then the bad news that you received about your brain hemorrhage and the AVM diagnosis. Like, how did you cope through that? Did you use any tools, any resources, books? What did you use to help you navigate through?
Well, when I was living in Cleveland, I didn't cope with it. I didn't have any support. I didn't have a support system. And, things are so different now with this social media. Like, you have all these different support groups that are visible. Those support groups weren't visible back then. So I coped with it by myself. I coped with it by drowning in my misery and drowning in my sorrow. But once I moved back to Atlanta, it was just a change. It was a change in me. And I think at that point, I realized that the decisions that I were making were my decisions, and it wasn't the journey that God had created for me. So I actually had to strengthen my faith as well, and just focusing on God and focusing on what God wanted me, who He wanted me to be, not who I want to be. So I, just thinking back to what I said earlier, like, I had to change my faith. I had to change my mindset and, think a little bit more positive. So actually, when I moved back here, I ended up seeing a therapist. And I know in our community, a lot of people shy away from, going to see a therapist. I mean, what are they going to tell me? They got problems themselves. They being biased. But no, it really helped me. Like, you have to find someone who's fit for you. And that's what I had to do. Like, it took me 2-3 different therapists before I actually found someone who had experienced miscarriages. So she understood what I was going through. She understood my hurt. She understood my pain. She understood my frustration. And from there, we was able to connect. Like, we connected on so many levels. And she's actually the one that inspired me to actually write my book. Yeah, she inspired me to write my book. So that was my coping mechanism, was to actually go seek professional help for what I had been through.
And I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because it is still taboo in our community to go and seek therapy. I think more so for the generation that you would consider millennials or zennials, like I always say, like, I'm on that cusp, y'all. Like, even though I am a millennial, but no, I'm much, much more a Gen Xer in that range. But I think that a lot of us now know the importance of mental health, especially that we have children and we don't want to pass down a lot of the things that we experience trauma-wise to our kids. And we want to do better by being well mentally so that we can show up the right way for our kids and for those who are listening, our future children that we know that God is going to bless us with. So I'm so happy that that was a mechanism for you. I would love for you to share just any encouraging words for our listeners, because a lot of people are in different parts of their journey. Obviously, we didn't even look first before I asked you this. We didn't even tackle you having a baby during COVID. So can we talk about that? Because I just thought about it. Like, let's talk about you and because you had your other two, and then you had this COVID baby, which I knew was completely different. So can you share the differences and the nuances of being pregnant pre-COVID and pregnant during COVID, and then having a baby during COVID? And then we'll go to the last one.
My mindset didn't change. Like, I was happy that I was pregnant. Just following my losses, like, it didn't really matter. So the only difference was just the way I had to navigate to my appointments and even delivery. It was just, everything. Everybody was just like, you got your mask on. So have you been having any coughs or this and this and this? I'm like, yeah, I cough all the time, which, I mean, I don't have COVID, but it was more so another difference was I wasn't able to share my pregnancy as much as I've done in the past. Like, in the past I was working and I would, I would be able to share my love and my joy of being pregnant with my coworkers. But at this point I'm at home teaching behind the screen, and the kids didn't even know I was pregnant because all they saw was this. So look, my face didn't get fat. I still look the same. So when it came time for me to actually have a baby, I was like, okay, you guys. So I just want to let you know that for the next couple months, I'm going on maternity leave. I am pregnant. They was like, what? Why you didn't tell us, Miss Animashaun? So that was pretty much the only difference. Everything else the same. Like mentally, I was ecstatic to be pregnant.
Perfect. That's good. That's so good. So let's leave our listeners with some encouraging words. So obviously we are still in this pandemic transitioning to endemic. You know, a lot of people are still on that journey to become mothers, right? And become parents. So what encouraging words can you leave our listeners as they navigate their journeys?
Yes. Ladies, gentlemen, because, you know, we all in this together. My encouraging words is just stay positive. It's easy to, you know, drown in your sorrow. It's easy to think negative, or it's even easy to, you know, want to share your pain with others and others not understanding, you know, your pain. So my advice is to find someone who understands you. Find a support group. Hire a professional therapist, someone that can give you the right advice. Because if you're sitting there and you listening to people who don't understand what you've been through, I feel like that's what causes us to become this depressive person and, you know, have these negative thoughts. So just moving forward, just know that God has to find a say so. And that's actually in the last chapter of my book, you know, from people telling me that I wasn't going to be able to have kids, or people even, like I had a woman who tried to attack me about having a miscarriage. That was her way of fighting me. So she thought that by attacking me, it was going to break me. But again, like I put in my book, God has to find a say so. Not man, not the doctors, not your friends, not your mom, not your family. God has to find a say so. So if it's meant for you to be a mom, then God is going to make it happen. But just know that it's going to happen on His time and not yours. And that's what I had to realize, is that I wanted to be a mom on my time. I wasn't ready. And when I look back now and think about everything that I had going on, even my mentality as a young woman, I would have not been ready to be a mom. But I became a mom at 34. And people tell me all the time, you are an awesome mom. Like, I wish I was the type of mom that you were. Like, I invest so much of my time into my kids. I'm just making sure that they have everything they need, mentally, spiritually, you know, financially. And I feel like if I was a 30-year-old mom, then things would have been a lot different for me. So trust God, trust the process, and just keep waiting for God to make you a mom, not when you want to. And it will happen. I promise. It happened to me.
Amen.
Living testimony, Erica.
Living testimony. So where can we connect with you? Your business, to learn more about this nonprofit once you get it up and running? I know people who are in Georgia are going to want to support it. So drop all your links.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you can stay posted. You can follow me on Instagram at author S Animashaun. So author S ANIMASHAUN. And on that page, I post everything that I'm doing for my book, for my 2 small businesses. Now, once I get approved for the IRS for this tax exemption, still waiting, then I'll create a whole new Instagram page for that particular nonprofit. So I definitely post it on my social media pages once I'm approved. But you can also follow me on or request me on Facebook. So I have my personal page, which is Simbi Animashaun. And I also have a Facebook business page, Immaculate Health and Wellness LLC, doing business as Immaculately Match. And I also have a website, And on that website, you can learn a little bit more about me and my books. So just quickly, so this is my memoir that I published. It's called The Power of Healing, a memoir of loss and victory. And so this is where I actually discuss my losses, my miscarriages, and my motherhood. And then, like I said, I created a miscarriage journal, which is going to be placed in the care packages, for my nonprofit organization. So this is called This Too Shall Pass, Turning Pain into Power, which is a miscarriage recovery journal for those women that have experienced losses.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Simbi, for being on the podcast and sharing your story. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. For show notes, go to sistersinloss.com. To stay connected with us and join the Sisters in Loss community and receive my weekly newsletter, please go to sistersinloss.com/newsletter. That is sistersinloss.com/newsletter. Please rate and review this episode, and I will talk to you next week.